Now, to start off with, my name is Ed Zamora from Principia Prep. Today, we're going to be going over the college aid program. Okay, let me go over today's presentation outline. We're going to be going over the college costs. We're also going to be going over the different financial aid forms, the FAFSA, the CSS, state forms, institutional forms. We will also be discussing the SAT, ACT optional situation and how that's affecting financial aid as well as admissions. We're also going to go over Rutgers' new Scarlet Guarantee program, which is about a year old, which is basically either free tuition for you guys out there or reduced tuition depending on your financial situation, as well as I'll be going over all the due dates and deadlines and things to look out for, as well as scams and frauds, things to avoid. Also, I'm going to be going over some student loan basics, as well as financial aid resources out there to help you guys find additional money, scholarships, so on and so forth throughout today's presentation. So that being said, let me start off by talking about our scholarship program here at Principia Prep. We actually have what's known as the James Russo Memorial Scholarship. And the way it works is very simple. Every year, based on the amount of views you guys give our YouTube channel, which I'll talk about in a moment, we take those proceeds and give back to the senior class going off to college every year in the form of scholarships. The first year, we were able to amass a little bit over $15,000. Last year, I believe we did a little over 11 or maybe $12,000 in scholarships the year before. And the way to apply the scholarship is very simple. As I mentioned before, if you go to our YouTube channel, basically, if you go to YouTube itself and just type my name in, Ed Zamora, you'll get our channel. We have over 250 videos now about the entire college process. I have videos about pretty much everything: obtaining scholarships, how to appeal, who appeals for more grants and scholarships, financial aid guides, basically a whole gambit of different videos out there to help you guys with the financial aid and admissions process in college. Now, one of the videos we do have on YouTube, if you go to our channel, just type in Ed Zamora, and it'll bring you to our channel. On our channel, we actually have the James Russo Memorial Scholarship video, the new one we just posted basically a month ago. We actually revamped the old one. The video itself will explain to you guys how to go out and get our scholarship for your school to make you guys eligible for our scholarship program. Every video you guys watch here on the channel, if you guys let the commercials run, you don't have to watch the commercials, but all these different commercials that play throughout the YouTube videos, we take those commercial proceeds and give back to you guys in the form of scholarships every year. So that's how we're able to give out the thousands and thousands of dollars in scholarship money every year. It's based on you guys watching the YouTube channel. That being said, let's jump right into the first aspect of the entire process of financial aid, which is understanding what financial aid is. Now, many families, unfortunately, don't understand what the term financial aid actually means. And many people's eyes, when I say the term financial aid from a parent perspective, not from a financial aid officer perspective, most parents think of financial aid as grants and scholarships, which is partly true. The reality is, if you think about it from a financial aid person in college's perspective, you're looking at it from the perspective that financial aid means four things. It means grants and scholarships, still free money, stuff you don't have to pay back, but it also means loans and work programs. So the reason I basically start the presentation explaining this is because everyone needs to understand the foundations of financial aid before you get too far into the numbers and everything else. Because what happens is I see a lot of times, and I've worked at 3 different private colleges, I see this all the time, where the families will keep asking the same question: does your school offer financial aid? Or does your school give out a lot of financial aid? And all the answers to all those questions are always going to be the same. Yes, every school technically gives out financial aid. But that's not really the question you want to be asking. The question you really want to be asking is, what do you typically give out in gift aid? Gift aid is the actual financial aid term that means free money. Gift aid means grants and scholarships. So if you start talking to a college's financial aid office or admissions office, and you get, on the terms of talking about the financial aid packages they typically give out, I'd go right into the question of, what do you typically give out in gift aid? That's the term you want to use, because that's going to help you get the right answer for what you're looking for. Because literally every college can offer you financial aid, because as soon as you fill out the FAFSA form, every single student going off to college is automatically offered a federal direct loan of $5,500. So technically, every student who fills out the FAFSA is essentially eligible for financial aid. You're looking for the grants and scholarships, and to get that information, you have to use the term gift aid. Now, that being said, let's jump right into talking about the price tags of the colleges, because obviously nowadays the colleges have not gotten any cheaper. They just keep getting more and more expensive, unfortunately, every year. And the way it works is typically, if you guys are looking at local public universities, typically in-state, you guys are looking at costs roughly in that $15,000 to $30,000, $35,000 price tag. So colleges locally, unfortunately, have not gotten any cheaper, but the private colleges and the elite colleges have gotten way more expensive. In fact, believe it or not, we actually have some colleges now. These are some of the more prominent schools that students here in the tri-state area apply to. Schools like Miami, UConn, Northeastern, etc. These schools are now all essentially over the $80,000 price tag. $80,000 is like the new normal, unfortunately, in the world of college when you're talking about name brand colleges, believe it or not. Now, the reason I show this slide in the beginning is to talk about, let's just look at the numbers right from the get-go. Yes, these schools have become very expensive, unfortunately. The reality is, though, thankfully, even though these colleges are some of them in the $70, $80, even $90,000 price tag, as you can see here, the reality is many of these schools are also very generous. So one of the first mistakes I see across the board almost every year from the admission side that most families and students make is you guys look at the price tag of the college and assume you can't afford it and you don't apply. The reality is you have to do the homework and figure out if the college costs, let's say, $70,000 or $80,000. Does that mean that I'm paying that amount of money? Or is the college very generous and will reduce that amount and make it more affordable for us that we feel comfortable sending our student off to that college? Throughout today's presentation, I'm going to give you guys a lot of equations and terms and vocabulary you got to be using going forward. So the first thing we need to know is, obviously, you already understand what financial aid means. The second thing we need to know is how they break down if we're eligible for financial aid at all, specifically grant money, which means do we have financial need to attend a college, and does a college meet that financial need in the terms of grants and scholarships to free money we don't have to pay back. Now, right in front of you is essentially the equation used by every single college out there. Everybody from county college all the way up to Harvard, every school in between will use this equation I'm about to go over. It's a simplified version of the equation of how they figure out if you're eligible for aid. I'm going to give you guys breakdown of each one of these components in more detail as well throughout today's presentation. Right at the bat, every one of you should write down the term cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is extremely important from this perspective. It's what the college cost, everything included for one academic year for one student going to college. I want to show you what goes into that in the next slide and why it's so important. So you take the total cost of the college, then you subtract out what's going to be known now going forward as the student aid index, used to be known as the expected family contribution number. Both basically mean the same thing. It's the number that you will get after filling out your financial aid forms of what they think you can pay towards the cost of college based on parent and student's income and assets. So you take the total cost of the school for 1 year, cost of attendance, subtract out what they think you can pay towards the cost of college based on your student aid index, based on the financial aid forms you fill out. What's left over is known as financial need. Now, financial need is essentially what the college should help you guys out in the terms of scholarships, grants, loans, and work study. Now, the reason I say the college should help you out is there's no guideline, there's no rules, there's no laws or anything indicating the college has to help you out at all. As you go through this whole process, I'm going to give you guys some good websites and some good places to go to figure out if your college is generous or not, by the way. What you'll notice is some colleges will cost the same amount of money. They both cost 70 or they both cost 80 grand. And one college, based on your situation, is going to give you 30, 40, maybe $50,000 off, where the other college might give you just $1,000 off. You have to figure out as you go through this process. I'm going to give you some websites to go to that make sure that it's financially feasible for you guys. You guys feel comfortable financially going down this path. Now, that being said, let's go over what cost of attendance actually means. Cost of attendance means what a school costs, everything included for the whole thing, for one academic year, both fall and spring semester, the whole thing. Now, the reason I tell you guys to make sure to utilize and understand these terms like gift aid for free money and cost of attendance is because if you go to any college fair, any open house, if you call any school's admissions or billing office or financial aid, and you ask them, what does your college cost? You're asking the wrong question from this perspective. If you ask a college what they cost, typically they'll tell you what their tuition and room and board cost is. That is not the total cost of the college. That's a fraction of the cost. It's a big fraction, but still a fraction. If you ask them that question, or if you ask them, what's your cost of attendance, I almost guarantee you're going to get two different answers. The tuition and room and board answer, which will be the lower cost, versus the cost of attendance, which is the bigger cost. You want to know what the cost of attendance is when you talk to any school, because that means they're going to tell you the tuition cost, room and board cost, book cost, transportation cost, miscellaneous cost, new student fee, technology fee, parking fee, lab fees, all of it together. They're going to tell you this is what they cost all in. It's better to know that number for a few reasons. Number one, I want to know what I'm going to be paying for upfront way before I get a bill later on and I'm shocked by additional numbers. Also, a second reason you want to know the cost of attendance is if you're looking to appeal. Now, obviously, a lot of families appeal and ask for more money. They basically try to negotiate. When you negotiate, you never negotiate tuition and room and board. You negotiate the cost of attendance because that's a bigger number. That's including the books, the transportation, the lab fees, etc. You want to negotiate the higher cost, not the lower cost. This is why the terminology is so important to understand what financial aid is, what gift aid is, and what cost of attendance is. That being said, let's talk about right off the bat, how can we figure out, is our school list generous or not? And it's very simple. What we do is go on to College Board, or we can just Google our school's name and the term net price calculator. Now, the term net price calculator is very important for all of you here. You should all write this term down, net price calculator, for a bunch of reasons. Right at the top, obviously the FAFSA form is changing, and there's a lot of changes this year, which I'm going to get into in a moment, as well as there's changes to the CSS profile, there's changes to the state forms, there's changes across the board to all the different equations, all the different formulas, figuring out how much aid you should be getting for college. So the easiest way, the simplest way for families out there to get a sense of, is my college going to help us or not, is go on Google, type in any school's name and the term net price calculator. What the net price calculator will do, and by the way, the reason I have College Board, because most of the websites will send you back to College Board, because College Board has a lot of net price calculators for these colleges. On the College Board site, or wherever they send you for the net price calculator, it's very direct. They're going to ask you maybe 12 to 15 questions. It's basically going to be student's first name, parent's first name, and then how much do you make every year? What do you have in checking? What do you have in savings? They go right into it. And by the way, this information isn't saved, so you can play with these numbers. And they'll tell you at the end of the net price calculator how much grant money this school will give you if your student gets accepted and attends, how much scholarship money they'll give you in many cases too, if your student gets accepted and they attend. So these things right here, the net price calculators, are the keys for all of you out there to figure out within 5 to 10 minutes, very quickly, every single school on your list, are they going to give us money or are they not going to give us money? If they're not going to give us money, do we feel comfortable still applying? If they're going to give us all the money we want, we feel comfortable. Let's move forward. Maybe we want to do early decision 1, early decision 2. Maybe we want to do restricted early action. If the school is generous, we feel comfortable going forward. We don't have to worry about that and thinking about if we get in, how do we afford it? We already know the college is going to be helpful. If the college is not helpful enough, can we negotiate? All these different things I'll talk about in a moment, but you want to know from the get-go, is the college giving us anything, let's talk about it from that perspective, to help us pay for the college is really your goal here, utilizing the net price calculators. And as I mentioned before, they're very simple. In fact, I even did one for you guys here just to show you how simple they are. I jumped on Google, just typed in Harvard net price calculator. It asked me, I think it was 14, 15, maybe 16 questions tops. It literally takes 5 minutes to do these things. And you can play with the numbers. So let's say you're thinking about taking a part-time job on. How much does that affect your information as far as getting aid? What if we lowered the income we had? If we have a business, maybe. What if we are paying the student? What if the student gets a part-time job? All these different factors I can figure out with the net price calculators of how it's going to affect my financial aid going forward every year. Now for Harvard, I plugged into their calculation that I have a family of 4 with 1 student going to college, and that we're as parents, we're making $100,000 a year, and we have $50,000 in checking, savings, investments outside of retirement, basically. And Harvard came back and said, as you can see here on the left, they cost $83,850 all in. Harvard came back and said, based on your situation, based on everything you're giving us here, you're paying essentially $15,000 to attend Harvard. So basically a fraction of what the college actually cost based on my financial situation. I know some of you here might be thinking, well, Ed, that's great, but how many of us are going to Harvard essentially? Now, the reality is Harvard isn't the only school this generous, believe it or not. There are many schools that meet 80, 90, even 100% of need of what you need help with that are not Harvard level and possible to get into. Schools like Lafayette are very generous. Schools like Loyola, all 4 Loyolas are very generous. Schools like Providence, Babson, Bentley, BU, Northeastern, Rider, Fairleigh Dickinson is very generous. So he doesn't have to go to the most difficult school out there, but you should all be doing the net price calculators and figuring out, is my school going to be generous for us or not? It's a key component in helping your situation out, knowing that if I'm applying, I feel comfortable applying here. You should always build your college list knowing that you feel comfortable, both from an academic perspective, it's a school that you can do well and it has your major. From a social perspective for the student, they feel comfortable and safe there, protected. And then the third is the financial component. Do we feel comfortable spending whatever amount it is we'll be spending every year? If we don't, if one of those 3 don't match up, then you should not be applying to that college. If all 3 boxes are checked, then go forward and apply. That being said here, let's go on to the next slide here, talking about which financial aid forms we need to be filling out. Now, when it comes to the financial aid forms, the benefit here is, guys, is that right at the bat, the form on the left will be filled out by all of you. So the FAFSA form on the left is filled out by everyone here. The FAFSA form is filled out to start the process of financial aid. This year for senior parents, by the way, unfortunately, there are a ton of changes. I'm going to go over in a minute. But one of the big changes for senior parents is the form is not being opened on time. The form itself, the FAFSA and the CSS, the form on the right, typically opened in on October 1st. And then you can start filling out the form every day after that. The reality is this year, unfortunately, for senior parents, the FAFSA form is not opening up until sometime in December. We're not even sure when. They haven't come out with a date yet. They just said sometime in December. The form on the right, though, the CSS profile, which I'll also talk about in a moment, which is an additional form to the FAFSA, will open up October 1st. So you can technically do the CSS profile form first and then come back and do the FAFSA form on the left next. Now, when it comes to both these financial aid forms, as well as institutional forms and every other financial aid form out there, you guys aren't doing anything unless you're a senior parent. So seniors, you guys are filling out forms this year starting October 1st, specifically the CSS, then the FAFSA in December. For junior parents, you guys aren't doing any forms until next year. So for senior parents, when you guys do start filling out these forms, whether it's the FAFSA or CSS this academic year for next year, your student going off to college, you'll be using your 2022 taxes. For junior parents on the call, since it's all informational, you guys won't be doing anything. But for you guys, just to give you some insight, you'll be using your 2023 taxes when you fill out your financial aid forms next academic year. That being said, let's go over the big changes because once again, there's a ton of changes to the FAFSA. Right off the bat, they are changing the date. So the FAFSA form used to open up on October 1st. Now it's no longer opening up on October 21st. Now it's opening up sometime in December. And the reason I say sometime in December is because they don't actually have a date as of yet. We're still waiting for them to come out and announce the date, whether it's December 1st, the 15th, etc. Now, one of the big changes they've been talking about is they've reduced the questions on the FAFSA from roughly around 90 to 100, depending on how you answered some questions. More questions were created. They're saying they reduced it down to just a little bit less than 30 questions. But it's not completely true in the sense that it's reducing down to around 35 questions if your income is at around $30,000 and below. So if your income is $30,000 and below, you're answering around 35 questions. If your income is, let's say, $30,001, you're answering anywhere between 60 to 70 questions. So the reality is, yes, they're still reducing questions, but it doesn't mean they're reducing all the questions. Now, some of the things they are getting rid of are beneficial, and some, unfortunately, are not beneficial. Right at the top, one thing they're getting rid of, unfortunately, is the multiple students in college discount. Now, the way it used to work is if you had multiple students in college, what happened was they typically would give you a discount of 50% off and basically divide the amount you had to pay between two students. Let me give you an example. Let's say last year you filled out the FAFSA form using the old equation. And the old equation, you filled it out for one student. And that one student's FAFSA at the end said you can pay $20,000 towards the cost of this student's education. What would happen is if you had a second student going in, you were still, as a family unit, paying $20,000, but that number was divided between the two of them. So student one was made to pay $10,000 or asked to pay $10,000, and student two was asked to pay $10,000. Still combined 20, but separately $10,000 apiece, which means each student had more space available individually to get financial assistance, which means obviously more help because you have more space. Now, obviously, it's a big deal for a lot of families in the news and so on and so forth talking about losing this discount. But the reality is it does not affect many families from this perspective. There's three people giving you financial aid: the state, the federal government, and the school. And the way it works is the FAFSA form was typically used to award all three of these people's money, both the state, the federal money, as well as the school's money. However, what has come out in the last couple of months is the state of New Jersey, as well as the school itself, the institution giving out their own grant money, both have said they are still looking to give out the discount of multiple students in college, which means the only person not giving the discount, the third person here, is the federal government, which means, believe it or not, many of you guys will not be affected by this because if your school is generous, what they typically will do is they'll just take whatever the federal government was going to give you and basically took away and give it to you in their own money, in their own institutional grant money. So if you're looking at expensive schools and thinking, well, we lost a discount, it's going to be a big deal for us because the college is very expensive, unfortunately. In many cases, it's not going to affect you, believe it or not. Now, another big change, unfortunately, on the negative side is they are changing the way they look at separated and divorced parents from this perspective going forward this FAFSA for 24-25 academic year. Once the form opens up, it now asks if you guys are divorced or separated for legal documentation. Before, it did not ask for that. So if you were separated from your spouse or you guys were divorced, were in the process, excuse me, of getting divorced, it did not ask legal separated documentation. It just basically asked for when you guys have been separated and how long. You would say whatever month it was, whatever year it was, as long as it was 3 months or longer. They would then ask the next question of who does the student live with 51% of the time or more. Now going forward, unfortunately, they don't do that. Now what they do is they're going to ask for legal separation, if paperwork, I mean, if you guys are legally separated or separated at this point in time or in the process of divorce and haven't finalized it yet. If you are divorced, obviously, you can just indicate divorced. Once they ask for that documentation and everything else going forward, the next question they're going to ask you is who provides 51% of support or more? That's the new question now. So what they're really looking to see is essentially who's claiming the student on the taxes is the path they're going down here based on this question. Now, if you're wondering, we go back and forth. 1 year I claim them, 1 year they claim them. What should we do? Which way would you go? We're 50-50 custody. In this case, I would still follow the old format of using the parent who has the lesser income as the person I'm using for the FAFSA. Now, obviously, if that parent doesn't make any income, they're not going to accept that. So you will have to use the other parent, unfortunately. But these are things you have to think about as you're doing your taxes, obviously, if you haven't finished them for 22, as well as for juniors for your 23 taxes. If you are divorced or separated, these are the things, the loopholes, or I guess the hurdles you have to go through going forward every year now based on the new FAFSA form, unfortunately. And with that being said, let's talk about the new FAFSA. And this is what the actual website, first page, once you guys log on to the FAFSA, will look like. Now, going forward, for senior parents, of course, juniors, you're not doing anything just yet. For senior parents, when you guys start or able to get on the FAFSA form, right at the bat, this website here, as you can see on the left, 2 blue boxes, you can either click on Start a New Form or Edit an Existing Form. By the way, you can click on either box. It doesn't matter. It brings you right to the next question, which is basically the same screen for either one of the boxes you check off. Now, the website you guys go to is the one down there, studentaid.gov. It used to be FAFSA.ed.gov. Then they switched it to FAFSA.gov. Now they got rid of that basically, and they're going directly with studentaid.gov, the website you guys see down below. That's where you would start the FAFSA form in December when it does open. Now, that being said, when you guys are looking to do the FAFSA, and I've been saying this year after year after year, if you guys have gone to any of my presentations or followed the YouTube channel, you realize that every first day or second day of the FAFSA being open, I put the video on there explaining why you don't do the FAFSA for the first couple of days. This year will be the same, no difference. This, what you see right here where it says page currently unavailable, is a screenshot I took over the summer. I usually go into the FAFSA almost weekly to help parents out with the FAFSA or make changes or add schools, that kind of stuff. And this screenshot here is something I've gotten every single week, at least once or twice over the summer while I'm going into the FAFSA, indicating to me that they're still working on the forms and there's still a bunch of bugs and we're in September and I'm still getting this error message, which means if the FAFSA opens on December 1st or the 5th or the 10th, whenever it opens, give it at least 4 to 5 business days before you jump on the FAFSA because it's going to crash. And I'm not just saying that because it's a new website. The system has crashed for 10 straight years. Every single year for the first day or two, it has always crashed. And this year they're changing and revamping everything, and they're still not ready with the website. And we're almost at the end of September here. So it's very likely there's still going to be bugs in it the first day or two. Do not go on there. There's no rush. Everyone talks about, of course, first come, first serve. If I don't do it the first day, I'm not going to get all the money. It's not the way it works. First come, first serve has not existed, to be honest with you, in probably 40 or 50 years. First come, first serve is a great marketing selling tool to get you guys to do these forms early so you guys don't do it like the day before you drop the kids off at school. So they want these things in early. They tell you first come, first serve. The reality is, if this form opens up in December, you can do this form in January or February and still get the same amount of money. I would not go in there the first day or two. It's going to be likely, unfortunately, a bad situation, and it's going to crash, unfortunately. It always has and it always will, because there's so much volume going in there the first day or two. So I would take at least 3 days, 4 days be best to go on there and start the form. Now, when you do go on the form and you click on either one of those blue boxes indicating I want to start working on the form, they're going to ask you, do you have your student FSA ID and parent FSA ID? You need 2 IDs. You need to create 2 accounts, 2 FSA IDs, one for the student, one for the parent. On our website, on our YouTube channel, we actually have a guide, a step-by-step guide. You can go on the YouTube channel and just type in step-by-step FAFSA, FISA ID guide on our channel, and our video pops up, a webinar like this, recording, and I'll walk you through getting the FSA IDs for both you and the student. Now, you need two IDs. One ID to basically jump into the student's account, and one ID for the parent to also log into the parent's account. Both IDs will allow you to also upload your taxes, which I'll talk about in a moment. But you need two IDs. Without both IDs, you cannot fill out the FAFSA form. You cannot just get the student ID and then submit it. Nothing's going to happen. Both student and parent need to get these IDs. And once again, I have the guides on the YouTube channel to help walk you guys through them. They're like 8 minutes long, very quick, very easy. You can actually get the FSA ID for senior parents now if you want. You don't have to wait till December and the form opens up. You can get them in September, October, November. Get them before the form opens up. Not a problem. For juniors, do not get them yet. It's way too early. That being said, on the FAFSA form, once you guys fill out the student sections, you log in the student section, you fill out all their information, and you also told them about what schools you want to apply to and everything else. Once you finish the student section, at the end, it's going to ask you, who do you want to utilize for the parent information? So it's going to ask for mom, dad's name, social, birthday. If you're divorced or separated, it'll ask for just one parent. If you're married or remarried, it will ask for both parents' information. And then what will happen is once your student submits that part, which is their part, you as a parent will get a notification, and this screen here you see here indicating that the student section is now complete. We now need the parent to jump on board and start filling out their section. Now, when you're filling out both the student and parent section, you are going to be able to see essentially an activity section where it shows you what has been accomplished, what's not been accomplished. These are the different screens we're showing you guys here of things they need from you guys. So it'll say notification went out to mom and dad, but nothing's been done yet. Until it's done, it's not going to indicate as complete. Now, each one of you guys will be getting notifications via email, so it helps you guys kind of keep yourselves in the loop. So thankfully, if your student does their part and forget to tell you do your part, you will be notified as a parent. That will notify you through email, letting you know you need to fill out your section. So if your student forgets to tell you, or you guys at the parent fill out their section and forget about your section, don't worry, you will be notified. You will be able to do your section as well. That being said, like I mentioned before, both student section and parent section will allow you guys to upload your taxes using the same old process called the iris retrieval. Now, the iris retrieval tool will be in each person's section. So the iris retrieval tool will be in the parent section as well as the student section, allowing you to upload for senior parents your 2022 taxes directly from the IRS. But once again, the only way of doing that is if you created the FSA IDs. If you have not created the FSA IDs, you will not be able to upload anything, unfortunately. So the FSA IDs are critical and very important. And I would definitely, if you're thinking about it, should we upload the taxes? Should we not upload the taxes? I don't want anyone seeing my stuff. No one can see your stuff, by the way. Once you do upload your taxes from the iris retrieval tool, what happens is every answer that's income tax related will show as the answer as transferred from IRS. So there's no numbers showing up. Now, that being said, let's talk about what counts on the FAFSA, what actually goes on the FAFSA form. What are they looking at this for when we do fill this out in December? Right off the bat, they do want to know about, obviously, your income, as well as your checking, your savings, any investments you guys have outside of retirement. So retirement assets do not go on the FAFSA form. There's only one question about retirement on the FAFSA form, and the question is not asking you how much you have. The question is asking you how much you contributed the tax year before. So essentially, the way it works is this. Let's say you have a 401k or a 403b, and you have, let's say, $50,000 in your retirement account for the 401k. And last year you put in $5,000. They do not want to know that you have $50,000 on the FAFSA. It does not go on there. The only thing the FAFSA wants to know is the $5,000 you put in there. They want that number put back on the FAFSA form. Now, when it comes to the FAFSA form as well, the primary residence where you guys live also does not count. So where you guys live, the house, if your primary home, doesn't count on the FAFSA form as far as any equity you have. What does count, though, is if you have a second property, a rental property, a beach house, land, any of this kind of stuff that's not the primary property, that equity in those places does go on the FAFSA form. Obviously, if you have a mortgage, you have debt, HELOC, whatever, those things get taken out before you tell them the equity amount you have. And that being said, let's go over the actual numbers here of the FAFSA itself. Now, when it comes to the FAFSA form, this is the actual equation you guys will be looking at, or I guess this is the FAFSA equation that will be used for you guys at this point in time. They are talking about changing it up a little bit before October. They're giving us the finalized numbers, but these are pretty close to the numbers they'll be utilizing in figuring out how much you guys will pay based on your income and your assets once you fill out the FAFSA. Now, I go through this whole equation here to give you guys an idea of how the numbers work, only because it kind of gives parents and students a better sense of how they're coming up with a number they expect us to pay. Now, when it comes to the student aid index, this equation here has 4 parts. There's 2 parts for the student and 2 parts for the parent. I'm gonna start from the bottom and work my way up. Now, if you guys want, I will give you a calculator online to use for this in a moment. But first, I'm gonna go through these numbers so you guys have a better sense how this thing works. But it is better, by the way, to utilize the net price calculators. I just go through this so everyone kind of has an idea, a foundational idea of how they come up with the numbers they think you can pay towards college. Now, right at the top, from the bottom, working way up, student assets. When it comes to any money in the student's name, checking, savings, those kind of things, any money you put on the financial aid form, FAFSA, any money you put on there will be counted at a rate of 20%. So if you say to them, my student has, let's say, $1,000 in a checking account, and you put it on the FAFSA form, 20% of that, or $200, is part 1 of the 4-part equation they add together to consider what you should be paying towards the cost of college. Part 2, students' income. Now, students' income, this amount has increased dramatically over the last 5 or 6 years, but thankfully at this point in time, the number's gotten to almost 10 grand. So essentially the number right now is, if your student in 2022 for seniors, and for juniors, obviously, it's 23 numbers. We're still in 23 here for you guys. For seniors, for 22 income tax, if your student filed a tax return and they made less than $9,400, none of the money they made counts at all towards cost of college. $1 over that amount, unfortunately, counts as 50 cents on the dollar. So if your student made, let's say, $10,000, you'd put the $10,000 on the form, or essentially do the IRS retrieval, and they'll put it on there from the IRS. And then what the machine will do is it will back out $9,400. The $600 remaining will be assessed at 50%, or basically $300 essentially will be added to the second part of the equation. Now, part number 3, parents' assets. As parents, you guys are giving a small asset protection allowance. Basically, what that means is a certain amount of money that doesn't count in the college equation. Now, remember, your primary home doesn't count. Your retirement assets don't count. And the asset amount is roughly around $10,000. So let's say all the money you have in the world is you've been paying off the house aggressively, or putting all the money in retirement, and all the money you have in the world is $8,000 in checking. That's all you have left. If you put that $8,000 on the FAFSA, it doesn't count at all towards the cost of college. But let's say that we put $20,000 in the FAFSA form in checking or savings. Then what they'll do is they'll basically back out $10,000. The $10,000 remaining will be assessed at a rate of 5.6%. So the way to kind of start thinking of things is the student's money counts at 20%. I, as the parent, my money counts at 5.6%. Things you might want to do before you fill out the forms, maybe pay some bills, maybe take some money and knock down a mortgage, pay down the car bill, whatever it is, just in some cases to maybe minimize the amount of money you have available. So that way it can help you in some cases towards getting more financial aid. But remember, it's the student's assets that count the most. The parent's asset have a little bit of a fractional cost compared to the students, which is almost 4 times as much. That being said, that's why everyone talks about, get the money out of the student's name kind of situation. That's why everyone kind of brings this up. And then the 4th part here, obviously the big one here, is the parent income. Now, when it comes to parent income, you guys are looking at adjusted gross income. That's what they mean when they talk about income. And when they talk about adjusted gross income, if your income, because a lot of you guys are probably looking at, they want 20% of your income, they want 40% of your income, like how does it kind of come up with this number? And it really depends on what your number starting off with for adjusted gross is. If you're making adjusted gross of 200,000 or below, typically your number is roughly around 20%. So you're making 100,000 a year, you're paying 20,000. You're making 200,000 a year, you're paying 40,000. That's kind of a rough idea of how this number works. If you guys are making roughly around 200 and above, that's when the equation starts going higher, the percentages. So that's when they start asking for 24%, 29%, 30, etc. The higher you go as far as income, adjusted gross, the more they want from you to pay for the college costs. It's essentially the way this whole thing gets put together. Now, I go over this formula here so you guys have a sense of how they come up with the student aid index, what they think we can pay towards college. Now, once again, the key here, though, is not really this. This is good to understand this, but it's better to understand what the net price calculator situation is for your family for the colleges you're specifically applying to. Which brings us to, once you guys complete both the student section and the parent section, you guys will get a confirmation, both email as well as you can see here on the screen, indicating you have completed the FAFSA form. Once you get that confirmation email, you want to make sure 2 or 3 business days afterwards to go back into the student's FAFSA and make sure everything is checked off, all the green check marks showing there's nothing left to do. The reason I say this is because while it's rare, I have seen this because I've helped out, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of families do this. I have seen in rare occasions where you fill out the whole FAFSA, come back a month or 2 later, and nothing is there. And you have no idea why nothing is there because you remember doing everything, you remember uploading the taxes, so on and so forth, but it's just not there. And you got to do it all over again. So it's best if you go back in there after you complete it, 3 or 4 days later, business days, just to make sure everything is checked off, indicating, yes, everything is in the system. Okay. Which brings us to, at the end of the FAFSA form, the FAFSA people, basically the U.S. Department of Education, has indicated that you will no longer have to do any state questions at the end. I'm not sure if I would say that I am 100% committed they're going to be able to do this, but typically at the end of the FAFSA, every year, you would get boxes like this, like the one on the left that says, do you want to fill out the state application for state aid? At the end of the form, the FAFSA, once you're on the confirmation, if you see anything on the confirmation screen talking about the state of New York, if you live in New York, or the state of New Jersey, if you live in New Jersey, etc., you got to click on that box. Reason being is by clicking on that box, it provides the FAFSA information. It basically transfers it over to the state that you reside in to be able to be eligible for state aid. So you want to make sure to do this. Now, the state of New Jersey doesn't ask any extra questions anymore. They just want you to transfer it over. The state of New York, if you're a state of New York resident, does require you answering questions. So obviously, if you see it on the confirmation screen that, yes, you must transfer it over and ask questions, you got to do this. Now, when it comes to the state aid here, specifically for New Jersey, if that box is not there, you will, if this, hopefully the FAFSA, it will, as it says it will, for the 8 states that do require additional forms to be filled out at the end of the FAFSA, it will transfer it over. If it doesn't transfer over and you see the box, just click the box. Within about a month and a half to 2 months, you guys will start receiving, specifically the students will start receiving emails from these guys right here called NJ FAMs. Now, NJ FAMs, I get this email and phone calls and text messages from families all the time. Hey, Ed, I'm getting this stuff about HISA and NJ FAMs. They want me to fill out these forms. Is this real? Is it a scam? It's not a scam. It's real. NJ FAMs is a division of HISA, which helps allow for them to basically provide your student state aid if they're eligible for state aid and stay in the state of New Jersey. Now, once you guys fill out the FAFSA, 2 months later, you get the email saying, please create a student account, and then what will happen is this page here is what you'll see as the first page of the landing page for your student's account. On here, you will click on first, to-do list, and see, do they need anything from us? If they do need something from you, it's typically pretty small, like a W-2 or a driver's license. It's never anything too big for them. The second thing you want to check on is the awards and eligibility information, which is the 4th tab here. That's going to show you if you're eligible for any state aid of any kind. Maybe you're eligible for STARS 1, which is free county college. Maybe you're eligible if you're already in college. Maybe you're eligible for the Garden Guarantee, which is essentially reduced or free tuition at state schools in the state of New Jersey. Or you might be eligible for TAG grants, tuition assistance grants. So this is a very important thing to do, especially if you guys are looking to stay in the state of New Jersey. As well as both the FAFSA and the state of New Jersey, the HISA and NJ FAMs people are also aligned with Rutgers through their new program called the Scarlet Guarantee. Now, Rutgers started a great program a year ago, which allows New Jersey families, if they're making a certain income level, to get huge deductions on the tuition cost. As you can see here, also a video on this subject too on the YouTube channel, the Scarlet Guarantee video. So I have videos about everything, obviously, but I have a more in-depth video on YouTube about this, but I'm going to go through this program here for you guys watching. The Scarlet Guarantee through Rutgers, which was started a year ago, basically looks at the parent's income, the adjusted gross income specifically, as I mentioned. Now, there's 3 different tiers here. If you are making $100,000 down to $80,001, if you're in that range, you're only paying $5,000 a year to attend Rutgers through their tuition, somewhere between a 50 to 75% reduction in cost, depending on your program. So huge savings here. If you're making $80,000 to $65,001, you're only paying $3,000. So once again, somewhere between 70 to almost 90% reduction in cost, depending on your program. And then the last tier here, if your adjusted gross income is 65,000 or below, you guys aren't paying a single dime to attend Rutgers as far as tuition. Of course, there's still the housing costs if you decide to live on campus, but if you don't live on campus and you're in tier one, 65,000 or below in income for 4 straight years, you can technically go to Rutgers essentially without paying a single dime. So this is a phenomenal program that Rutgers started a little over a year ago. Once again, I have a video on this on the YouTube channel, a lot more in depth. But if you're looking at Rutgers as one of your top choices, you got to get your application for Rutgers out early this year. You cannot wait, because obviously this is adding even more competition to the world of admissions, because Rutgers has November 1st early action deadline, December 1st priority deadline, and then you have another deadline after that. But it's going to be very difficult to get in if you don't meet one of those two deadlines, either the early action deadline or the preferred deadline, because those two deadlines are immensely important this year. If you miss those two deadlines, it's going to be immense competition you're dealing with. If Rutgers is a top school for you and you want to go there, I would definitely suggest getting this in at the latest at the end of October. Because once again, this is a great program and a lot of families are going to be utilizing this to get themselves into affordable college tuition. Which brings us to, now we talked about, with Rutgers out of the way and the FAFSA out of the way and the state form out of the way, let's talk about the third form that you can actually technically fill out before any other form, which is the CSS profile form. Now, the CSS profile form is filled out on the College Board site. Now, the College Board site, for many of you guys out there, your student already has an account. If your student had done anything with APs or the PSATs or the SATs, they signed up for any of these tests, etc., you guys already have an account in place. You don't have to create a student account. All you do is log in through the student's login, which is their SAT login, essentially, to start the CSS profile form. Now, the CSS profile form is filled out on the College Board site. Now, the CSS is very different from the FAFSA. Obviously, it's opening up October 1st. There's no deadlines here as far as they're waiting till December. They're opening up October 1st. So if your school is asking for both the FAFSA and the CSS, I would suggest starting the CSS and then doing the FAFSA form later on in December. Now, the CSS profile form is very different from the FAFSA in the sense that there's also a lot more to it. Right at the bat, the CSS profile is $25 for the first school to fill out, and then $16 for each additional school. The FAFSA form has no charge for as many schools as you want. You can put on 10, 15, 20 schools in the FAFSA. It's not going to charge you. The CSS will charge you for each additional school. In addition, the FAFSA form, depending on your situation, will range between 35, let's say 65 to 70 questions, where the CSS profile will range from 300 all the way in up to 400 plus questions, depending on your situation. Now, by the way, not every college wants the CSS profile. To give you an example, here in the state of New Jersey, we only have one school that wants the CSS profile. That's Stevens Institute of Technology. No other school wants it. Not Princeton, not Rutgers, not Rider or Fairleigh Dickinson. None of them want the CSS. They all want the FAFSA and the state form. If you're looking to go popular areas like up north or down south, UVA, Chapel Hill, Duke, Wake Forest, Elon, all require the CSS. BU, Northeastern, all require the CSS. Boston College, Tufts, etc., all want the CSS. Now, if you want to find out, does my school require one form, both forms, does it require multiple forms? Very simple. Call the school's financial aid office and ask them, which financial aid forms do you need right over the phone? They can even tell you today or tomorrow if you call tomorrow morning or the next day. Right over the phone, first person that picks up can tell you, these are the forms we need and the deadlines we need them in by. So that way you're not missing anything. Now, when it comes to CSS, there's also additional changes from the FAFSA. Right off the bat, they count everything. That's why I have the kitchen sink on the screen here. So the CSS does count your home, where you live, the primary equity in the primary residence you have, they will count it. They also do count retirement assets. They want to know, in some cases, how much you have in your 401k or 403b, etc. Now, when it comes to all these forms, there are save buttons. If you get overwhelmed with any of these forms, hit the save button and come back the next day or 2 days later. Do not rush. This is not a race. Once again, first come, first serve does not really exist. There's no rush to get your forms in the next day it's open. Take your time. Make sure that things are correct. Do not rush. Making errors on these forms is common, especially if you're rushing. Now, let's talk about divorced and remarried parents. Once again, there's more stuff here to it as well for both forms. If you are divorced and you guys are remarried, The new stepmom, stepdad, your information goes on all financial aid forms, the FAFSA, the CSS, etc. Now, when it comes to these forms, once again, on the end of the FAFSA, if you are remarried, you can put both parents' names, birthdays, and socials, and it'll attach, basically allow you to create another account. Either one of those parents, typically the biological parent in that section, in many cases, by the way, you guys will create your FSA ID. Once you open up your account, you'll show both your information there. You guys can just basically put all your income, assets, etc. on the FAFSA. On the CSS, it's a little different. On the CSS, if you are divorced or remarried, it will ask you to fill out, in many cases, if you're divorced or separated, two CSSs, one for the custodial parent, one for the non-custodial parent. And most CSS profile schools will ask if you guys are remarried, specifically if you're both remarried, for all four people's financial information, both the biological parents and both the step parents, income, assets, etc. Everything will be put in together, unfortunately. That being said, let's talk about, once again, the two in college. Now, when it comes to the two in college, the one thing I'm not worried about, and I tell every parent this across the board, is if you have students overlapping, I'm not worried about the FAFSA situation. What I'm worried about and what I need information about directly from the colleges is how are you handling it with your institutional aid? So if I'm applying to a certain school and I know the school is expensive, and by the way, every school obviously now is expensive, unfortunately. If I know the school is expensive, the number one question I'm asking the financial aid office is, how are you dealing with multiple students in the school? Are you still utilizing your institutional aid to provide me the discount if I send students, basically two of them to college? And when I mean two of them to college, I don't mean two of them to your college. I mean one to your college and one somewhere else, or even obviously both at your college. I want to know what scenario, how are you handling it at your university? Because that's the key of figuring out if the college is going to help you with the discount or not. Not so much what FAFSA was doing, because FAFSA was doing it anyways. They're going down their own path, but it really doesn't affect that many families. It really affects, in most cases, for you guys out there with the multiple kids, the effect is really checking on in to see what the school individually is doing with their own money. That's the key here. Which brings us to frequently made errors. Now, when it comes to frequently made errors, it's very simple. There's essentially 4 frequently made errors every single year when it comes to not just financial aid, but admissions. It's the first name, last name, social, and birthday of the student and parent. And the way it works is this. If you know, or if you're filling out these forms and you have, let's say, a nickname, like my name is Edward and I go by Ed or Eddie, I do not put Ed or Eddie on any of these forms. That's not my legal first name. Your last name, I know it's going to sound insane, but this happens every year and I've been doing this 25 years. If you don't know your last name, you're probably thinking, like, how do you not know your last name? This happens every year when I have families that are remarried. If you're remarried, did you legally change your last name or did you not legally change your last name? You have to use your legal last name, what's on your social security card, on all these forms. The birthday. If you don't know your student's birthday, they probably don't know your birthday very likely. You got to ask. You got to make sure you're putting the right birthdays down. And the worst error of all is the social. If you make the social error, as far as specifically the student social is wrong on any of these forms, specifically the financial aid forms, it's a nightmare. In some cases, they'll be asked to do the form all over again. Even if you finished the thing 2-3 weeks ago, you still got to do the whole thing all over again because in many cases, they lock the socials. That's the biggest error you can make in any of these forms, by the way. Which brings us to avoiding scams and frauds. When it comes to scams and frauds, the U.S. Department of Education has a great website, a great resource. Down below, you can see down there, studentaid.gov/resources/scams. That website right there, if you just copy and paste or take a screenshot, I guess, if you guys are watching here, take a screenshot and then go on the website. It goes over every scam out there. There's been scholarship scams, grant scams, admission scams, all kinds of scams that get students stuck in things that they shouldn't be paying for, or basically getting stuck in things they shouldn't be getting information about. Now, if you think something might be too good to be true, it usually is. Now, if you want more information, obviously go to this website here, or you can also go to our website. We actually have, I think, 7 or 8 videos on all the different scams out there in the world of college, financial aid, admissions, etc. If you want to, just go to our channel, just type in the search bar scams, and then we'll also explain the different scams out there and things to watch out for. Okay. Which brings us to, once you guys finish all this stuff, the financial aid forms, get accepted, send everything out, you'll start receiving what's known as financial aid award letters, what you see here on the right. The financial aid award letter will have the scholarships, the grants, the loans, and the work programs. This is essentially when the negotiation phase begins. So when you can negotiate and ask for more money. And the way negotiation works is pretty simple. Let's say you have two schools. School A, where your student really wants to go to, let's say it gave you a $5,000 scholarship or grant. School B here, maybe their fallback, maybe their safety school, had given you, let's say, $15,000 in scholarship money. What you can do is go back to school A, say, thank you so much for the acceptance. I appreciate it. We appreciate the 5 grand. We want to make you aware, though, this other school has given us $15,000. Is there any way you can match the number? And that's how you say it, by the way. Can you match the number? You never ask to split the difference. You wait to see what their counter offer is. Then you can try to split the difference. That's the way it works. You always look to see what they say first. And I would suggest, since none of you guys have ever, or maybe have not done this very often as that way I have, I do appeals every year, probably hundreds of appeals every year. You should appeal every single scholarship. You should always appeal a scholarship because you never know which school is going to say yes, which school is not going to listen at all, or which schools will give you a ton of money. So it's always good in the beginning, always appeal the scholarship money. That being said, let's talk about loans. Now, when it comes to loans, there's basically the starting point of every loan situation when it comes to college is the federal direct student loan that comes to you guys, that gets given to the student just by filling out the FAFSA form. That's known as the direct loan. The direct loan will be given to your student in the amount of $5,500. Now, that $5,500 loan typically breaks into two categories. You have subsidized and unsubsidized. Of that $5,500, most of you will get $3,500 of the loan in subsidized and $2,000 in unsub. What that basically means in layman's terms is sub means the government's paying the interest while your student's in school, so you don't care it's at 5%. Unsub means the interest is growing on itself if you're not paying it. You can elect to take both the loans, sub and unsub, or just say yes to the sub, no interest while the student's in school, and say no to the unsub, or say no to both. It's up to you. Now, the second most important loan every student and parent will be offered or told about, it's called the PLUS loan. The Parent Plus loan also requires the FAFSA form to be filled out to even be considered for the Parent Plus loan. The Parent Plus loan lets you take out as much as you want. Now, obviously, it starts at an 8% rate, so it's not exactly cheap, but it does have the lowest credit requirement, around 580, 590. They'll accept for students' parents borrowing money for them to go off to college. Now, the negative part about the Parent Plus loan is the loan is only in the parent's name, has nothing to do with the student. Third place you can go, private lenders. Now, if you want help with the private lenders, very simple. If you go on my YouTube channel, you can see that every summer I put on the YouTube channel the top 5 student loans out there for parents going out there and borrowing for their students. Most of the private lenders, pretty much all the private lenders, will let you borrow the loan in the student's name and you guys will co-sign. So if you want help with the student loans at the end, basically when you guys will be getting the bills will be June of senior year. Then you have until August to get a loan in place. And by the way, the loans only take about 20, 30 minutes to get in place. They're very quick. If you want loan help, very simple. Either just follow the channel, and then once the video pops up, typically I put it around middle of June, the top lenders, you can just basically look at who's out there. I give you guys a top lender based on interest rates, so you guys will know who to apply for. That being said, hopefully you guys already signed up. If you didn't, you can just email me later on. We do have a newsletter that goes out every month. Our newsletter goes out and tells you guys what you need to be doing every single month. Seniors, what you need to be doing, juniors, for testing, financial aid forms, etc. If you want the newsletter and didn't sign up already, just email me. I'll give you my email at the end of the presentation. I explained every month in the newsletter what you need to be doing based on grade level. Now, that being said, here are the important websites I talked about here tonight. Studentaid.gov, obviously for the FAFSA form. College Board, not just for the CSS. College Board's a great resource, gives a lot of information. Also is where a lot of the net price calculators are for you guys figuring out which colleges are generous, which colleges are not generous, and who should we move forward with applying to. For scholarship searches, I really like FinAid, CapX, and Going Merry. These are 3 free websites. I would not pay for any scholarship searches because they all have the same scholarships on them, whether they're for pay or for free. So I'd rather go for the free guys. And these are the 3 I like the most. And then if you guys want more help in the college process, obviously you can follow us on Facebook. I post stuff on Facebook all the time about new admission stuff, financial aid stuff, testing stuff. I'm posting stuff on Facebook all the time. So if you want to follow us, just type in Principia Prep. You can follow us on Facebook, as well as on the YouTube channel. The more videos you guys watch, the more commercials you let run, obviously, the more money we get, the more money we generate, the more money we give back to you guys every year in the form of scholarships. That being said, here's my contact information. If you guys have any questions or have anything pop up you need help with, financial aid forms, etc., you guys can always reach out. That's actually my cell phone number. So the best way to reach me, believe it or not, is text message. Everyone thinks I'm out of my mind. My wife thinks I'm out of my mind because I do 70 high school presentations plus a year, and probably 30, 40,000 people have my cell phone and text me all day long. But if you have questions, just text me. It's the easiest way for me to help you out with any questions you have, or email. Those are the two ways of getting a hold of me. I rarely answer the phone once the September season starts because I'm always either helping a parent or consulting a college or doing a financial aid night for high school. So it's very difficult getting me on the phone from a phone call perspective, but very easy to get me if you guys text me or email.